Welcome to the Farmish Kind of Life podcast, where we talk about homesteading stuff and life stuff and everything in between. Join me, Amy Dingman, as we explore big questions on a little farm. Welcome back to the Farmish Kind of Life podcast, where we talk about real life on the homestead and we leave the fancy filters at the door. Today is June 10th, 2025. This is episode 317. Today's episode is a little permission slip and a whole lot of please stop making this harder than it needs to be. We are going to talk about 5 things you definitely don't have to do to be a homesteader. And I know that there's this growing movement of folks out there who say, I don't even call myself a homesteader anymore because this isn't homesteading. Why are we calling it homesteading? And I get it. I've done episodes on the Farmish Kind of Life podcast about homesteading and the label and what it means and does it matter and is it more harmful than helpful? So I get it because labels are weird. On one hand, we use them to find our people. Because imagine this, if you walk into a giant conference center, you're going to look for this sign that says homesteaders, not millionaires, not crypto bros, not cat show finalists, whatever. You're looking for your section, right? So homesteading, those might be my people. But on the other hand, labels get kind of messy because they get co-opted and they get stretched and then they get turned into some kind of purity contest. And honestly, I don't care what word you use. This episode isn't about what makes you a real homesteader. It's really about taking the pressure off. Does that make sense? Because sometimes we need someone to remind us that you don't have to do all the things to belong. You don't have to check every box to be part of the story. So today I want to bust through 5 of the biggest, I guess I would say, you're not a real homesteader unless, those kind of myths that I see out there. Because guess what? You're still a homesteader even if you buy your bread, even if you freeze tomatoes instead of canning them, even if you don't have goats or pigs or bees or chickens. But before we talk about that, what's been happening here on the Lifestead? Well, the Lifestead has been busy because that is what time of year it is. The garden is 99% planted. And I'm glad, I'm happy about that. It takes a lot longer than it used to, my friends. Man, I remember when I could just go out and zip through planting that huge garden in a day. And now it takes a few days to get it done. One thing that I did that I was pretty excited about is I wanted an arch, kind of a trellis arch thing. And I've seen people make these from hog panels or cattle panels, and they kind of bend them over and make this arch. Well, bending one of our old hog panels scares me because they're I don't know, how are people bending these panels? Are they using panels that are not as thick as the panels that I have? Because the panels I have hanging out back, which are old, right? They're from back in the day. So maybe they were made differently. I don't know. But me thinking, okay, how are we going to bend this without hurting ourselves? So I'm I don't want to make an arch. I don't want to bend them. I just want to make a little triangle. We would call that a teepee back in the day. I don't know if you're even supposed to say that anymore, but whatever. So a little triangle thing, that my peas can climb. And so I decided what I was going to do is I was going to take one of these old hog panels. I was going to cut it in half with a bolt cutter. And I was going to put the nice smooth edges together and put zip ties on the top, right? So I'm making a triangle on the ground, zip tie on the top to keep the triangle top together. And then the pokey parts that I had kind of cut, you shove into the ground to kind of keep them in the ground. And that is my very redneck, very use what you have, very I didn't hurt myself by trying to bend this into an arch kind of trellis. And I'm excited. I'm really glad for that. The internet told me that it was way too late in Minnesota to plant peas. I even specifically looked, planting peas in Minnesota, is it too late? And everywhere told me yes. But I asked my friends who live in this area and they were like, plant your peas. Just put them in the ground. So that's what we're going to do. It's been a long time since I've grown peas, but I thought they sounded good. So there you go. What else? So I have these ducks, right? These Muscovy ducks. And I have a hen who's been sitting on a nest and she keeps moving the nest and rolling it all around the coop, And I'm like, what are you doing? She's first time mom, never had ducklings before, never sat on a nest before. And I'm like, you can't roll your eggs all over the coop. And you just need to just leave them in a pile and sit on them. That's what you need to do. Well, she started finally sitting on this nest way back in like April. And I know that these ducks specifically take a long time to hatch. Most ducks are like 28 days. These ducks, Muscovies, take 35 days to hatch. And so I wrote down when she finally started sitting on the nest, and I was like, all right, I counted 35 days. Should have been last week that they were hatching. They're not hatching. I'm like, what are you doing? So when I realized that this was going to be a problem, I actually started stealing duck eggs. When I found duck eggs in new areas, because we have 2 hens right now, and so I would steal eggs when I knew that they were not from this nest that she was rolling around. And it takes a while to collect eggs when you only have 1 or 2 hens who are laying. But I finally had 12 duck eggs that I had stolen. And I put them in an incubator, you guys, because I have this hatching obsession, apparently, where I just have to hatch things. And so now I'm going to try and hatch out some ducklings. Ducklings are usually a little more difficult, a little more persnickety to hatch out, but I have done it before. I've hatched them out. The thing that happened the last time that I hatched out ducklings was then my Muscovies decided they were going to hatch out 1 million babies themselves. They were like, oh, that's what we're doing. We're doing babies. Okay. And then we had like 40 gazillion ducks running around this farm. So, you know what? I guess if that's what happens, that's what happens. That is a risk that I'm willing to deal with, I guess. What else? Peace, Love, and Bacon, my newest book about homesteading, Tales of a Farmish Kind of Life, turned 1 month old last week. And I'm just reminding you that it's out there. It's summer. You're busy, but it's also a good time to sit down and enjoy a book. If you have read the book, will you please go to Amazon and leave a review? I have 4 reviews on this book right now. I would love to get more reviews on this book, not just because I'm like, ooh, I need to stroke my ego. That's not what it is. Amazon actually allows you to do more things, and some of the book promotion sites will only allow you to do certain things if you have a certain amount of reviews. So that would be wonderful if you could go leave a review. It doesn't have to be a 5-star review. I want your honest review, but I would love some reviews. So there you go. That's my request for anybody who has read the book to leave a review. All right, now let's head over to the main topic and talk about 5 things that you definitely do not have to do to be a homesteader, or whatever you want to call this thing that we are doing. So today, I would like to talk about a few of the things that I still hear people saying, I feel like I need to do XYZ in order to be a real homesteader, or to do this homesteading thing. And I want to bust through some of those things today because, y'all, it is 2025. Nobody knows what a quote unquote real homesteader is in 2025, because none of us are Ma Ingalls. All right. None of us are pioneers. None of us are doing it on that level. And if you are, you probably ain't listening to this podcast because you don't have a way to do it. But we're going to talk about some of these things that I still hear people saying, and I want to assure you, you do not have to do these things to be whatever a real homesteader is. Number 1, you do not have to grow everything. All right. You don't. I want you right now, to raise your hand and don't raise your hand if people are going to stare at you, or if it's not safe to do it right now. Maybe just nod your head or whatever. But raise your hand if you've ever been scrolling online and you see someone's garden and you're like, oh my gosh, I will never be able to grow all that. Raise your hand. I'm raising my hand right now. There's some amazing gardens out there. I ain't ever going to be able to grow anything like that. And I have a pretty cool garden, but it's not like some of them out there, right? And I even, there's that comparison thing. I still fall victim to it. But you don't have to grow all that. Here's another thing. Raise your hand if you have ever killed a zucchini plant, which people say is impossible to kill, right? I have killed zucchini plants, and it makes me very, very sad because I actually really, really like zucchini. So I'm very sad when I have a year that my zucchini plants do not work. It's actually a thing. You can have a year where the zucchini does not grow. My favorite thing to do with zucchini is make zapple pie, which is a pie that tastes like apple pie, but it's actually made with zucchini slices. And some of you right now are like, that is not a thing. I'm going to tell you, it is a thing. It's delicious. The recipe is from Common Sense Home or Common Sense Homesteading. I will stick it in the show notes. It's delicious. Y'all ever have too much zucchini? You make this pie. So good. Nobody knows that it's zucchini unless you tell them. All right, that was a little tangent there, but you don't have to grow everything. Start where you are. Maybe that's a few pots on your front step. Maybe it's a raised bed. Maybe it's one cherry tomato plant that you have decided to call Larry, right? I don't know. Or would that be Bob? I'm going back to my VeggieTale days. Okay, so Bob the cherry tomato plant. I don't know. It doesn't matter. Like, you are not a failure if you buy it from the store. You are not less committed to the homesteading life if you shop at the farmer's market. Growing everything is not the goal. That was never supposed to be the goal. Feeding yourself in the way that works for your life is supposed to be the goal. Okay? So number 2, here's something else you do not have to do. Okay? You do not have to can if you don't want to. I know. Canning is practically its own personality trait in the homesteading world, but you don't have to can a single thing to call yourself a homesteader. You really, really don't. Number 1, there are so many other ways to preserve food. If you don't want to deal with canning for whatever reason, there's freezing, there's dehydrating, there's fermenting. Or you know what? You cannot preserve stuff at all and you can eat seasonally. That works better in some places than others, but seasonal eating used to be a thing, right? We could normalize letting the freezer do the heavy lifting. And yes, I get it. What if the power goes out and all of that? Like, I have lost freezers full of food before. I know that really sucks. But I don't think the fact that I started canning some things makes me any more of a homesteader than I was before I started canning. Okay? We could normalize being a homesteader who doesn't even own a canner and is still doing just fine. Thank you very much. You can do that. It's fine. And nobody's going to know unless you tell them. Here's another thing. Number 3, you don't need livestock to be a homesteader. I said it. You don't need chickens. You don't need goats. You don't need pigs. You don't need rabbits. You do not need to shovel poop in order for your life as a homesteader to count. Homesteading is not just about animals. It's about how you live. If I got rid of all of my animals on this farm, would I still be a homesteader? Or is it the animals that make me the homesteader? There was a year, several years ago, I don't know, we actually had no animals on the farm. Does that mean I wasn't a homesteader that year? Most of you are probably like, that's silly. Why would you even think that? There are lots of people out there that think if you don't have 3 chickens, you're not a homesteader, right? If animals aren't your thing, whether that's due to space or time or finances or just not wanting to deal with goats, you can still call yourself a homesteader. It's fine. Number 4, you do not have to make everything from scratch. Okay? Store-bought bread is not a crime. There are seasons where you will bake from scratch. There are seasons where you will buy the thing. There are seasons when your homemade meals are beautiful and nourishing and amazing. And there are seasons when your dinner is going to be peanut butter and jelly, peanut butter you didn't grind yourself, jelly you didn't make yourself, and bread you bought from the store. And you're going to have a PBJ and you're going to put it on a paper plate and you're going to eat it over your kitchen counter. There are seasons when that is what happens. Convenience is not a betrayal. Convenience is a tool, okay? It is okay to give yourself time and space to rest and recover or just do less. It's fine. You do not have to make everything from scratch. Boxed brownies, fine. You do not have to make everything from scratch. Number 5, you can be a homesteader and you don't have to monetize it. You don't. Just because you have a garden, just because you have some chickens, just because you have a sourdough starter, it doesn't mean you have to turn it into a business. You do not. You do not. You don't have to sell your eggs. You don't have to start a YouTube channel. You do not have to turn every hobby into a hustle. You actually can just homestead for yourself. You can live this life quietly, privately, away from the algorithm. You don't owe social media a performance. You don't owe anyone a side hustle. You are allowed to do this homesteading thing just because you love it. Isn't that refreshing? So let's run through this one more time. Number 1, you don't have to grow everything. Number 2, you don't have to can if you don't want to. Number 3, you do not need livestock. Number 4, you don't have to make everything from scratch. And number 5, you do not have to turn your homestead into a business. So what do you need? What you need to do is to live this life in a way that works for you. Honestly, consistently, without trying to earn gold stars from the neighbor or the internet. You are still a homesteader, even if your version does not look like someone else's. So, in case nobody told you this today, you are doing just fine. You really are. And that's what I got for you today. Thank you for hanging out with me today. If this episode gave you a little bit of relief or maybe just a nudge to let go of some of that pressure, share it with a friend or take me on social or just whisper hallelujah while walking past your empty canning shelf. It's fine. Until next time, keep showing up, keep doing your thing, and let that be enough. Talk to you soon. Hope you enjoyed the show today. To continue the conversation, visit our website at afarmishkindoflife.com, find A Farmish Kind of Life on social media, or drop me an email at amy@afarmishkindoflife.com. Peace, love, and bacon, y'all. Stay farmish.